We got to talk about the big return.
Ooh, the elephant in the room.
Oh, yes.
Or the shack in the room, if you will.
The Saquon in the room as Saquon returns to MetLife Stadium in this game. This is a pretty big winner as he's being called by a lot of Giants fans Snake-quon. Now, again, we have been on a record of saying we don't hate the guy. The Giants didn't want him just as bad as he didn't want the Giants. Like, this is fans are taking this way too personal. I still think that. But in the end, the man's a little crazy because did you hear what he said today?
I
He
did
said
not.
he doesn't think he's going to get booed at MetLife. Dude, if you don't think you're going to get booed at MetLife Stadium, we're wearing an Eagles jersey. Are
Dude,
you kidding? Like,
he's-
NFL, you need to piss test this man right now.
Yeah.
He's clearly on something if he thinks that he's not going to get booed. Entering MetLife Stadium, being a former Giant, wearing an Eagles jersey for the first time in that stadium.
He's played in our market. He knows how our fans are.
Just tells you
he's now been playing in Philadelphia for 6 weeks, well, 5 weeks, but like know how their fan base is.
And
how do you not think that?
Keep in mind also it's a home game as well. So like the announcers can pause if they want.
Oh, yes. So the
to
fans
allow
can hear.
for the booing. So trust me, he is going to hear like you would not believe. Let's go over what he's actually been doing this year, though, because that's the big thing is that there's a lot of fans that are taking, again, they took it very personal what he did. And like I said, I get it. You're allowed as a fan to take it however you want to take it. I think that the man's also allowed to make a living. And the Giants didn't want to, honestly, did not want to sign him this offseason, point blank. So the Eagles did. It is what it is. And I still think they're going to regret that deal anyway long term. So Saquon of the year, 5 games, 91 carries, 482 yards. That's a 5.3 yard per carry average. 4 touchdowns, 14 catches for 92 yards. 79 of those yards were yak yards and 1 touchdown. So not bad numbers on paper, guys. Like, really, we talked about this. Rob and I both said leading up to this year, expect Saquon to have a big year with the Eagles. Expect it, because it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's a really good offensive line, run blocking wise, at least. We didn't think they had the fall they have on pass protection like they had this year, but we knew they'd be a good offensive line for, run blocking, probably the much better than he's ever had in, with the Giants at that point. I think it's a safe bet to say. But guys, you got to look at the big runs he's had, because the numbers don't tell you what he's been dependent on. And I like to look at the game tracks of what he's done and the individual runs he's done at that point there. So he's had 4 what they call big runs. That's what they call them in the stat wise there. ESPN listed as big runs on their stats. And I was like, oh, big runs. That's over 20 yards. That's a lot of yards potentially off of this. How many yards does this man had off of these 4 big runs? He had a 65-yard run against the Saints. He had a 59-yard run against the Bucs. He had a 34-yard run against the Packers. Now, I could not find the 4th one, but we know it's at least 20 yards because it has to be at least 20 yards to be a big run. I couldn't find individual stats on every single rush for some of these games. But what I was able to find is longest rush per game. So I was able to find those 3 that way. Those 4 yards account for at least 178 yards, guys.
Yeah.
Without those runs, his average drops to 3.5 yards per carry. And that's if that one was a 20-yarder, which we know it probably wasn't. I don't know how big it was, but it was at least 20 yards. So 3.5 yards per carry. If 3.5 yards per carry, guys, is not good.
No,
it's not good at all.
We talked about him getting that with his Giants last year.
Yeah.
Like 3.4, I think we were talking about, like, because I made the case saying, like, if you do that every down, you get a first down every time.
Yep.
And 3 plays, but like that's still not good. Like,
it's like I said, that's not good. Like if he is averaging 4 yards per carry without those, I'm like, okay. But he is the guy who has lived and died by those big runs. And he's, like you said, he did that with the Giants too. This defense has to be able to stop the big runs. And I think if they can do that, we're going to do well against Barkley at that point. We know him. We know how to stop him. You got to be physical. He hates being hit. Let's be very frank.
Yeah.
He hates being hit. He loves to just dance around if the running lanes aren't wide enough for his liking because he's a little soft. He doesn't like getting hit. He thinks he can turn it out to the outside and make a big play. But it's not really that. I think it's him not wanting to get hit. I really do. Because we talked about it before. How many times did he go on to go out the outside, bounced it out, and lost 2 yards, but he could have gained 3 yards?
Yeah, by going up the middle. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what always killed a lot of his average, is that kind of stuff. And that's why he's also gotten the big plays every so often, is because every so often it will work out. So, we have to go ahead and just be physical with the guy. We have to make him want to bounce it outside. And we have to have somebody outside who can stop him. There's one guy in particular that I'm curious to see what he does in this game against Saquon in the run game. And that's Drew Phillips, guys.
Ooh.
Drew Phillips has been a very physical corner in the run game. And if Saquon goes to take it outside and Drew Phillips is on that field, there's a 50-50 shot that Drew Phillips is going to be on the side he's running to. I did the math real quick to make sure I was correct. Wait a minute. 1, 2. Yeah, 50%.
Yeah.
Left or right. But, that's something I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, is the fact that if he's bouncing outside, guys, this is not the old Giants team that doesn't have physical people in the secondary. I mean, granted, we still have a Dory Jackson who, is
runs away from the hit.
Yeah, he's like, no, don't touch me. But we also have, like I said, Drew Phillips, who's a very
my cooties outside.
Corner. We have Tyler Nubin, who has come up like a freaking rocket in run help at that point. I'm telling you, this is not the Giants of last year against that kind of stuff. The Giants of last year would actually have a lot more problem, I think, with a guy like Saquon. I think, if anything, the way Saquon runs actually is helpful for our Giants defense, as long as they tackle well, because every so often they will have trouble tackling. It drives me nuts when it happens, because it's like common basic things. Wrap him up, and wrap him up, okay? It's just very simple.
It's like a Friday night when you're
pretend it's a one-night stand.
Yeah.
It's not that difficult. Just, you got to hold on. And that's part of what gets me, is the guys like that, they don't hold on. Just hold on. That's all you got to do. Help will be on the way in a second to help him just smack him to the ground if you can't do it. The big key
at that point, don't listen to 38 special. Don't hold on loosely,
because you can't.
You don't want to lose control.
But it's like you can't really run very fast when you're dragging even a 180, 190 pound body. So it's like, just hold on.
Yeah.
Help will come. As long as the Giants do that, I honestly think Saquon is not going to be effective in this game. But I do think that this also is a personal game for Saquon. I think personally, because I think I hate to put people's words in their mouth. So I'll say it. This is me saying this. This is not Saquon saying this. But I think Saquon hates Joe Schoen with a passion. I really do. I feel he feels really disrespected by Joe Schoen. He probably feels very disrespected the way Hard Knocks played out. I mean, Hard Knocks literally had Joe Schoen saying, "Yeah, he's old. I don't want him." That's basically what he said.
Yeah, pretty much.
Meanwhile, he's talking to Fred Gore at the time, who played to was 47. It's like the Tom Brady of running backs. But it's like, it was pretty obvious that Joe Schoen wanted it to appear like, oh, well, Barkley just got a bigger offer. We weren't going to match it. Instead of saying, no, we didn't want him, which was pretty much the case. So I get Saquon's anger in that scenario. I truly do, actually. Because especially because it made him look like the villain in this whole scenario. And it shouldn't be a villain. We appreciate the time that you did work with us, Saquon. We don't want you moving forward. And let's be very frank, you don't want us moving forward.
Yeah, it's a mutual departure.
You could be an adult and have these kind of conversations. Instead, he got fan bases thinking that he screwed over the Giants and took the Eagles more money. No, he didn't want to go to the Giants, and the Giants didn't want him. Now, I've said it before. I'll say it again. The two teams I despise more than any teams in the NFL, the Eagles and the Cowboys. And the second you go to one of those two teams, I'm not going to root for you. I could even root for him to be somewhat successful as a Commander.
Yeah, because the Commanders have been out of it for so long that it's hard to
be
like, all right.
Yeah, it's just the Commanders.
Yeah, pretty much.
And he'd be like, well, he's washed up. He went to the Commanders. Like, that's probably more the outcome. You know what I mean? Like, or if you go to the Texans suppose he want him. Like, I would have rooted for him very hard at the Texans. Like, great, good for him. Like, let's
different
have
division. He's in the AFC now.
Yeah,
right.
But he went to the Eagles. He had to expect this hate.
He literally just went across to Delaware. Like, he didn't even travel that far. He didn't even have to really move.
Yeah, it's like you broke up with a girl and started dating her worst enemy.
Or best friend.
Well, no, I'm saying that we're not friends with the Eagles. That's why I was using that analogy. But yeah, either one. It's that kind of betrayal. It really is.
Yeah, I was saying it's a betrayal because it's the best friend.
Yeah. So, like I said, I think he's in for a rather large boo fest. Is that even a word, a boo fest?
It is now.
It is. I like it. I think he doesn't even realize it, though. That's the scary part. He does not realize what kind of a boo fest he's in for. He's gonna get every time he touches the ball. He's
gonna get booed.
Like, that's what's going to happen. So
happy Halloween.
Boo. Are they saying boo earns?
If you like that clip, then you will love the full episodes too. Find us on your favorite podcast app and look for us on all your favorite social media platforms.
Thanks so much.
Please, I'm begging you. Please subscribe.